And I have to begin today in Hebrews chapter 12, which is where I finished last time. And here it says, I'm one of these people I can see to read better without my glasses on. In the first verse, they've been talking about faith, and he says, this is Paul, of course, wherefore seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. And so what he's actually talking about is the previous chapter, which ends with verse 39, all these having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. Now, then Paul is going on to logically say, we are surrounded with he talks about a cloud. It's more than just one cloud. We're surrounded with clouds of witnesses. In other words, what we're talking about is not something isolated, nor something relating just merely to the prophets, the apostles, and so on. It is the witnesses, the ordinary people who become witnesses of this. And so, having said that, then I need to take you on into the Apostle of James. And it's quite interesting because here, if I start with the first chapter of James, here again we begin to see the same thing. And so let me just read this to you. This is James. Now we're not talking about Paul. You see, I'm going to show you from 3 different authors. I've started with Paul, I'm going to go to James, and I shall hopefully end with Peter, if I get that far. So we're talking about clouds of witnesses, but look, James, he opens in chapter 1, verse 1. James, a servant of God, and to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. So he's talking to the Jewish people. He says in verse 2, brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations, many temptations. But in verse 3, he gives the reason. He says, know this, that the testing of your faith works patience. So what we're coming on to here very, very clearly, if we're talking about faith, is that the faith is as good as its test. And I mean, I can show you this again and again in Scripture, and I will be referring to it again because it comes even in Peter. And this is why I'll end up with Peter, because it says in the first epistle of Peter, the first chapter in verse 7, it is the trial of your faith, being more precious than gold that perishes, that though it be tried with fire, that's your faith. If your faith is tried with fire, it might not fail, but will be found to praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ, whom you have not seen, whom you believe in. But the interesting thing here is that whereas in James chapter 1, he's saying the testing of our faith works patience, here in Peter, he says that the testing of our faith, the trial of our faith, which is more precious than gold. Now, it's the faith is more precious than gold. Wow. I actually haven't heard another preacher talk about it, but this is fact. Faith is more valuable than gold. How can you describe it? And gold perishes, even gold can perish. But faith, even when it's tested through fire, doesn't fail. Wow. But the thing that's caught me here is something I've never heard another preacher talking about, but it's something that here has really caught me as this. That faith that's been through the test will be found to praise and honor and glory when Christ comes back. Oh boy. So that when Christ returns, part of the reward that we get, part of our witness and our testimony is that we have a faith that doesn't fail, that doesn't give in, that doesn't buckle under pressure. And I have to say that, and I'm laughing a bit because somehow today I've been under an awful lot of pressure, and I think the staff have seen it. But we need a faith that doesn't bend, it doesn't buckle, it doesn't twist, a faith that is constant and reliable even when it goes through the ultimate test.